What's going on, everyone? This is Jacob Shoop. You're watching the Tom O'Brien Show right here on TFNN. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend, maybe a little bit restful. Let's hope so. It is beautiful out here right now. By that, I mean, what do we got, about like 60-something degrees, 69 degrees, a little bit cloudy. I love that weather. I was taking a walk a little bit earlier for my lunch break and was just thinking, man, Florida isn't that bad. And then I realized this is this way only about 3% of the year. And for the rest of the year, it is brutally hot. And that, I think there's some kind of moral there. Anyways, let's take a look at the composite right now. You're trading up about 1%. What has been going on really in the market the past few days is you start off, pre-market with very strong movement to the upside. And then you kind of get a sell-off a little bit throughout the day. Now, of course, the composite has had a lot of movement, mainly from NVIDIA. But let's take a look. You're up 1% right now, trading at 19,816. The Dow Jones Industrial off about 0.12% at 42,681. The DXY trading lower, 108.22, still relatively strong. I believe the Loonie exploded in strength. Justin Trudeau has apparently resigned, and I think a lot of people thought that he had mismanaged the government, especially the economy as well. You have crude oil off about 0.65%, trading at 73.48. Let's see, you got the SPY trading up 0.44% at 594. But see, this is kind of what I'm saying, right? You start off the day somewhat strong. Man, could we go back even further? Right, get it around here, we're at like 11:30 here at open. Okay, you get a big sell-off, and then we just traverse right back down. Even my smaller kind of stocks that I look at are doing the same thing, right? You have a lot of exuberance to the upside in the morning, and then you kind of just peter off throughout the rest of the day. Let's take a look here. We have gold contract off 0.37%, trading at 2,645. You got copper trading at 4.15. Very strong bid on copper recently, no doubt. Let's take a look. Silver up 1.33% at 30.46. You got the Russell basically flat right now, up 0.04%. Celsius up 1.22. Lucid up 3.04. I don't know what our Rivian's doing. Man, I wish I could turn the camera and show you guys this wind out here. Off 5.21% at 15.63. Of course, they had some good news. Essentially, they delivered more than Wall Street had anticipated, but it was in line with kind of their earlier projections. Those projections had been tempered a little bit because they had supply chain issues. It looks like those were resolved. Does that warrant, movement up to it was like 16.30 or something Friday? Probably not. That's why it's trading off about 5% right now. And then Steel Dynamics moving up 5%, 4.7%, and then Tesla off 1.27% at 405.31. Of course, we are still above that 400 level. It doesn't look like that stock has any intention of stopping anytime soon. Man, a lot to talk about. The first thing I want to say, we are going to have Steve Rhodes on in the second segment. Maybe he'll be on for the third as well. Kind of interesting to see what happens with that. I know he always has some fantastic analysis for us. Some things I want to go into today. I did kind of make a little bit of a list. I got AI, I got AIoT, looking at robotics a little bit because a lot of robotics companies are catching bids right now. Photonics a bit, and then data centers as well. Of course, a lot of this movement up with NVIDIA, of course, was with Foxconn, some announcements with Blackwell. But then, of course, you have Microsoft saying they're going to build out these data centers in a major way. So these are companies like RXT, you have PLR, which is a Reed, APLD, NVTS, and Wolf. Both of those are doing silicon carbide, which we can talk about in some ways. This could compete with photonics to some certain extent. But we'll discuss all that going forward. Some of the big news that just came out, and it's one we've been following a little bit, is everything to do with Salt Typhoon, okay? So Salt Typhoon is a persistent threat, okay, an advanced persistent threat. That's an APT. That's basically some kind of cyber group that is how would I put it in lay terms, is constantly bugging some kind of network, right? What Salt Typhoon does on the lowest form of your computer, you have something called a kernel that tells a computer how to do literally everything. Basically, they're able to exploit that on Windows. They keep coming up with 0 days. These are the guys that are in the telecom companies that we have. This basically triggered the US government to say start using end-to-end encryption. Now, of course, if you're an Apple-to-Apple communicator, that is end-to-end encryption. If you use Android to Android, that is end-to-end encrypted as well. Cross-platform, those are not. So, you know, if not that I think Salt Typhoon is hitting any of us in any capacity, but just keep in mind that it's something the U.S. government is talking about. Seems like they're really pivoting. So obviously at AT&T, Verizon, these people were getting exploited in a major way, but now it comes out that Charter, which if you're a Spectrum user, you are a Charter user, and then Windstream networks as well have been compromised by Salt Typhoon. They're using, from what I'm reading on here, of course they're exploiting kernel, but there's also something called MACsec, which is Media Access Control Security, which isn't often encrypted because it's not internet facing. I believe that's layer 2. Regardless, they actually are able to utilize that apparently to get into the network. This is just kind of what a lot of analysts are saying. I think the question still stands how Salt Typhoon is really exploiting this and getting in. It seems like there's a lot of Chinese components in our telecom system, and the U.S. government is taking a kind of a rip it approach, meaning that if this exists in our telecom, you've got to get rid of it, right? So that creates opportunities for us here, at least, to try to look into different companies that could kind of fill that gap, right, as we're transitioning over to a more modern telecommunications infrastructure. No doubt that needs to happen. If it is true that this group is utilizing basically backdoors in certain devices that comprise our telecom network, then absolutely you have to get rid of it, and we have to be a little bit more serious about where we're buying our stuff from. So that's very interesting kind of stuff. I believe this is like the 8th company now that is confirmed to be breached by Salt Typhoon. So pretty crazy. Of course, you talk about as well, you just have the Treasury that was hacked. Now those were kind of just simple endpoint devices that didn't have a lot of access to anything super important, but still it stands there. When these breaches occur, the government really does have to do something, and I think we're getting to an inflection point with NetSec in this country. I think you've seen it with Biden a little bit, with CISA, right? And there's no doubt, I mean, this is low-hanging fruit for the Trump administration to kind of pile money into as well. So very interesting developments right now. We're going to take a look probably throughout this week at different telecom companies that may be able to fill that void, maybe different cybersecurity companies that are currently positioned or may be able to catch bids coming up in the future. Folks, stay right there. We'll be right back with Steve Rhodes. He's the author of Mastering Probability. We'll be right back after this break.